If you've spent any time really looking at the news lately, or maybe just trying to have a constructive conversation with someone whose worldview feels, well, completely opposite to yours, you know the feeling I'm talking about. This is definitely a time of really profound social discord.
It really is.
And the image we see most often, it's that famous red and blue map of America, isn't it?
Yeah, that map.
It looks less like, a unified country and more like a single body that's just fundamentally fractured, split, as one source put it, between the heat of its heart and the coolness of its mind.
That's a striking way to phrase it.
Yeah. And we just hear endless talk about polarization, echo chambers, the loss of any kind of shared language for, civil discourse. It feels overwhelming.
And what's really crucial to grasp here, I think, is that while those terms, polarization, echo chambers, they're modern, they're social and political concepts, the root of this conflict, it's ancient. It really is.
Ancient? How so?
Well, if we manage to strip away all the partisan noise, just for a moment, we can see that the division we're living through is deeply, profoundly archetypal. It's like a mythic drama playing out again. It echoes that timeless and actually necessary struggle between the forces of order and chaos, between, say, the human need for roots, for stability, structure, and the equally powerful constant pull towards transformation, progress, renewal.
So you're saying this isn't new, that history is just full of these moments.
Exactly. Every period of extreme division, you could argue, is just a new stage for this very old play. The costumes change, the specific arguments change, but the underlying dynamic, that's archetypal.
Okay, that recognition, that changes the perspective quite a bit, doesn't it?
It shifts the ground, yeah.
So our mission today, then, is to take a detour, a hard detour away from the daily punditry, the headlines, and go straight to the deep sources of human experience. Ancient myths. We're going to use three really powerful, distinct mythological metaphors, one Greek, one Jewish, one Norse, to try and illuminate why our modern discord feels so depth, so intractable. And maybe more importantly, to gesture toward what the research calls a sacred harmony born of tension.
And we really need this kind of framework, because the usual approaches, like just calling for compromise, well, they don't seem to be working right now, do they?
No, it feels like we're past simple compromise.
We need something deeper than just political bargaining. We need to explore the idea that maybe the tension itself isn't the problem, but actually necessary. So our deep dive will focus on, first, the creative struggle between Apollo and Dionysus.
The Greek gods.
Yes. Then, the really tragic creation and consequence in the Golem legend from Jewish folklore.
Okay.
And finally, the fragile but luminous discipline needed to maintain the Bifrost Bridge from Norse mythology.
All right. Apollo and Dionysus, the Golem, the Bifrost Bridge. That's quite a lineup. Let's unpack this huge idea, starting, I guess, where so much of Western thought seems to begin. Ancient Greece.
Makes sense.
Because the Hellenic tradition, it wasn't just about, heroes fighting monsters, was it? The Greeks were incredible psychologists, really subtle.
Oh, absolutely. Deeply insightful about human nature.
And they gave us these two gods who seemed to perfectly embody civilization's dual nature, these opposing yet somehow necessary forces. Apollo and Dionysus, what some have called the flame and the tide.
That's a great way to put it. The flame and the tide. So the Apollonian impulse, that's the flame. It embodies clarity, light. Think of Apollo, the sun god, right? God of reason, perfect proportion, restraint, measurement, precision.
Sure.
Structure, exactly. His domain is the measured harmony of the lyre, the perfect lines of architecture, the crystalline logic of mathematics. He represents the idea that creation needs boundaries, needs form.
And didn't he have that saying at Delphi?
Yes. His most famous maxim, inscribed right there at his oracle, Meeden again, nothing in excess. That's the core Apollonian principle. It's the call to structure, to form, to discipline. The contained flame.
Okay, so that's Apollo, the flame, clear, ordered, rational. Then you've got his necessary, almost chaotic sibling, Dionysus, the tide.
The tide, yes. Dionysus is the god of wine, obviously, but also ecstasy, the dissolution of boundaries. He's the spirit of deep empathy, sometimes uncomfortably. Deep empathy of vital release. Think of the power of the vine breaking through stone walls. That's Dionysian energy.
And his rituals, the Bacchanalia, they were pretty wild, weren't they?
Extremely wild. They were designed specifically to bring people into this ecstatic communion, to temporarily break down the normal social walls. You'd have women, slaves, citizens, all united in this frenzy, dissolving the usual Apollonian order.
So if Apollo is about individual rational form,
Dionysus is about passionate collective flow, frenzy even. the overwhelming tide.
Okay, two powerful opposing forces.
But here's the genius bit, especially when you look at classical Greek civilization, particularly Athenian tragedy. Their brilliance was in the synthesis of these forces. They understood, intuitively perhaps, that you couldn't just have one without the other.
They didn't pick a side.
No, they didn't put Apollo and Dionysus on separate teams warring against each other. They saw them as essential aspects of life, and they literally made them share the stage in their dramas. Tragedy was the ultimate synthesis.
Oh, so?
Well, it took overwhelming, messy, Dionysian emotion, grief, rage, ecstasy, and gave it a controlled Apollonian form, the structure of the play, the meter of the verse. But equally, it infused that Apollonian form with vital, raw Dionysian passion. It gave structure a pulse.
So it was the dialogue between them, not a war.
Precisely. Their ability to hold these opposites in creative tension and dialogue is arguably why their civilization reached such heights. They didn't let one obliterate the other.
That feels like the key insight we desperately need to recapture today. Because when you connect this ancient Greek idea to our own modern polarization, wow, it feels like we've completely lost that dialogue, haven't we?
Utterly lost it. It's fascinating. The philosopher Nietzsche, back in the 19th century, he wrote The Birth of Tragedy, and he warned even then that modernity was becoming too Apollonian, too rational, too mechanistic, too rigid, losing touch with that vital, communal, messy Dionysian spirit.
And now?
Now it feels like the pendulum is just swinging wildly back and forth. We're constantly being forced to choose, are you Apollonian red or Dionysian blue?
Yeah.
Rather than asking, how do we synthesize these essential human impulses?
Let's map that out more clearly then. The red impulse in modern life that aligns with the Apollonian archetype.
I think so, yes. It's rooted in that drive for preservation. It tends to cling to definable structures, heritage, clarity of identity, law and order. It values the continuity of the tribe, the known. It's the flame, providing necessary definition, boundaries, defining who we are.
Okay. And the blue impulse then is the Dionysian tide.
Yes, it's fluid, it's transformational, it surges towards empathy, pluralism, reinvention. It seeks to dissolve, establish boundaries, national, cultural, personal, in the pursuit of universal compassion, a more just future. It's the tide, always pushing for growth, for necessary change.
Two necessary forces. But the myths usually contain warnings too, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And here's where the Greek lesson becomes an urgent warning for us. Because while each impulse carries a core truth, each also contains a profound destructive potential when it's left unchecked by its opposite, when it falls into excess.
So the danger of too much Apollo, too much red.
When the red impulse, the Apollonian demand for order, degenerates, it becomes rigidity. It denies the necessity of vital change, of adaptation. The flame scorches everything, burns away all nuance, all difference, until all that's left is brittle ash and unmoving structures. It becomes pure fear of the unknown, calcification.
And the flip side, too much Dionysus. Too much blue.
When the blue impulse, the Dionysian hunger for release and boundary-breaking change collapses into excess, it turns into chaos. It forgets the fundamental need for structure, for discipline, for shared boundaries entirely. The tide overflows, washes away all necessary forms, erodes all shape until nothing is identifiable. You're left with just exhausting, uncontrolled flux, pure dissolution.
So neither extreme works.
Neither works alone. The Greeks understood, I think, that a healthy civilization, like a healthy person, needs both. The discipline of Apollo and the passion of Dionysus. The world's health depends on keeping that creative tension alive between them.
So the challenge isn't picking red or blue.
No. The challenge is restoring what the source material calls the sacred art of balance, which is hard, constant work. It's about giving passion a disciplined vessel so it doesn't destroy everything, and giving reason a vital pulse so it doesn't become dead mechanism.
Help me understand that nuance a bit more, though. If these are, as you say, cosmic archetypal forces, does that mean political change is sort of impossible? Are we just trapped in this endless cycle swinging between rigidity and chaos forever?
That's a crucial question. I don't think the myth suggests we're trapped in the decay. The cycle itself, the tension, that seems necessary. But the decay into rigidity or chaos, that feels optional. We get trapped when we fail to honor the value of the opposite force.
So it's about how we manage the tension.
Exactly. The Greeks believed that by consciously engaging with the tragic tension, by giving it form, like in the amphitheater, acknowledging its power, they could temper the destructive potential of each pole. We break the destructive cycle not by trying to eliminate the tension, but by elevating it, turning it into a creative dialogue instead of a shouting match, or worse, a war.
Creative dialogue versus destructive decay. Okay. That distinction is a perfect bridge, actually. If the Greeks teach us about balancing energies, let's turn now to the Jewish tradition for maybe a cautionary tale about the peril when those energies get divorced from humility and harden into absolute certainty.
Yes, moving from the cosmic gods to the very human desire to manufacture our own salvation and the potential dangers there.
We're talking about the legend of the golem.
The golem, yes. One
Yeah.
of the most intellectually profound and frankly chilling cautionary tales ever conceived. We usually look to Prague, 16th century,
Yeah.
and the great figure Rabbi Judah ben Bezalel,
The Maharal of Prague.
the Maharal, exactly. The story goes, he fashioned a man out of clay, the golem, with a noble, righteous intent to defend the Jewish community from persecution, from violence. It was a creation born from a deep need for security.
An understandable need. And the key to bringing this clay man to life, it was a word, wasn't it?
A single word, inscribed on its forehead, emet,
Yep.
the Hebrew word for truth. It was animated by the concept of absolute, undeniable, righteous truth, a kind of sacred mandate to protect.
But it didn't end well.
No, that's the tragedy. The golem, being made of clay and animated by this abstract truth, lacked human understanding. It lacked nuance, context, empathy. It was pure, unfeeling mechanism driven by one command: defend.
So it couldn't distinguish.
Exactly.
Huh.
Once set in motion by this absolute conviction, it became uncontrollably literal. It couldn't tell the difference between a real external threat and maybe an innocent misunderstanding, or even a member of the community it was meant to protect. It started striking out blindly, unthinkingly, a perfect tool that had completely forgotten the soul of its mission.
Becoming the threat itself.
Precisely. So salvation paradoxically required a reversal. The rabbi had to stop his own creation. He confronted the golem, and the story goes he erased just one letter from his forehead.
From Emet.
From emet, truth, he erased the first letter, the aleph, leaving met, which means death.
Truth to death.
And instantly, the creature returned to the inanimate dust it was made from. The erasure of that single letter stopped the violence, returned it to inert clay.
Wow, that's a powerful metaphor.
It's the primal archetype, isn't it, of human creation turning against its maker. It represents any instrument, could be an ideology, a technology, a political movement that becomes rigid, forgets its soul, loses its connection to human reality.
And how does this golem archetype apply to our modern divisions? To the red and blue impulses we were just discussing?
Well, it applies directly because almost every political movement, left or right, red or blue, starts with a noble intent, right? A desire for justice or security or freedom, almost a sacred intent. But it risks becoming a golem the moment it gets animated purely by pride, by absolute certainty in its own truth, rather than by humility and wisdom, when it becomes a mechanism.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Can we identify modern golems emerging from these red and blue impulses? What would they look like?
I think we can see the red golem pretty vividly. It's formed from the clay of heritage, tradition, the desire for security and order, noble things. It defends its people fiercely. But because it's become mechanized, rigid, lacking doubt and empathy, it strikes out in preemptive fear. Fear of perceived threats. Fear of anything that complicates its simple, clear definition of safety. Its certainty makes it blind to nuance, even to the humanity of perceived outsiders.
Okay, the red golem security hardened into fear. What about the blue golem?
Blue golem. Molded perhaps from the clay of universal compassion, the drive for relentless social reform, the fight against injustice. Again, noble starting points. But when that certainty hardens into moral absolutism, it becomes equally dangerous.
How so?
It becomes so convinced of the total rightness, the absolute urgency of its cause, that it crushes any opposing viewpoint. Any dissenting voice, even allies who aren't pure enough, get run over by the weight of its mechanized certainty. It loses patience, loses the capacity for dialogue or incremental change. It demands purity now.
So both fueled by conviction, but conviction untempered by.
By humility. That's the shared flaw. Both golems, red and blue, are fueled by conviction. And conviction without humility, without the ability to question itself, inevitably leads to the destruction of the very thing they claim to protect. A functioning, humane, complex civil society. They crush the messy middle.
That sounds incredibly relevant, but where does the source material suggest we apply the rabbi's difficult lesson today? I mean, how do you practically erase a letter from an entrenched modern ideology that insists it holds the absolute emet, the absolute truth?
That is the absolute heart of the challenge, isn't it? The source material, interestingly, suggests this applies directly to our digital technologies, which are, in a terrifying way, golems operating at a global scale right now.
Our algorithms as golems.
Think about it. They were engineered, often with noble intent, to connect us, to share information, to kind of truth of access. But now they mechanically amplify outrage, division, tribalism. Why? Because their mechanism prioritizes engagement, clicks, reaction over nuance, understanding, or even basic humanity.
They use the sacred word truth. Here's the real story. But it's a mechanized truth.
Exactly. It's optimized truth, engagement truth, stripped entirely of empathy, context, wisdom. It's a met without the soul.
So erasing the letter in that context means disrupting the mechanism, introducing friction, forcing complexity back in.
Precisely. The rabbi's wisdom is profound. It tells us that sometimes salvation requires erasing a letter. It means humbling our own magnificent, powerful creations, whether they're political platforms demanding ideological purity, social media feeds driving outrage, or institutional orthodoxies that resist questioning. It means allowing the breath of spirit, the messy, complex human reality, to return where rigid mechanism has taken over. Every righteous ideology the deep dive material suggests must retain the capacity to die and be reborn in the light of humility. It needs to be willing to shed its certainty to survive.
The ability to question your own absolute certainty. That's the Gollum antidote.
It is. It's the difference between a living movement and a destructive mechanism.
Okay. From the danger of certainty, let's shift focus slightly. If the Golem shows the peril of building things without humility, maybe the Norse myths can teach us something about the sheer effort required to maintain connections, especially between different worlds or different groups. We're moving to the Bifrost Bridge.
Yes, the Norse cosmology. It's a fascinating map of connection and disconnection, really. At its center is Yggdrasil, the world tree, the mighty ash tree holding everything together, connecting all 9 realms.
And the Bifrost is part of that.
It's a key part. It's the visible link, the rainbow bridge, connecting Asgard, the realm of the gods. You could see that as the highest ideal, maybe even the Apollonian height with Midgard, our realm, the realm of humans, the place of struggle, earthiness, connection to the ground.
A rainbow bridge sounds beautiful, stable.
But here's the crucial Norse insight. It is described as beautiful, shimmering, but it's also explicitly described as perilous. It's not a solid stone highway. The myths say it trembles beneath the feet of those who cross it. Yes, it's depicted as being made of fire, air, and water elemental forces, inherently unstable, constantly shifting. It's a living, vibrating connection, not a dead, static one.
So the Norse weren't naive about connection being easy.
Not at all. They seem to have a deep, practical awareness that connection is inherently vulnerable. And we know its fate, don't we? At Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods.
The bridge burns?
The bridge burns. It shatters, severing the connection between heaven and earth, gods and mortals. This reveals, I think, a core understanding within the Norse mind about the fragility of links. Links between the divine and the mortal, yes, but critically for our discussion, links between tribe and tribe, between different ways of being. They knew these connections could break.
But wait, doesn't the Norse cycle, doesn't it restart? Ragnarok isn't the absolute end, is it?
Exactly. That's the profound twist here. Even though the Bifrost burns at the world's end, the Norse cosmos is cyclical. The world and the bridge are ultimately rebuilt. They rise again in the succeeding age. The destruction is devastating, but it's not final. The labor of building connection is perpetual.
Heroic persistence.
That's the phrase, heroic persistence. That feels like the core lesson we need to internalize right now. Our modern Bifrost, you could say, is precisely that fragile link between the red earth, the deep need for local belonging, tradition, continuity, home, and the blue sky. The equally important call for global empathy, progress, universal horizons, transformation.
And we have to acknowledge that bridge feels like it's burning right now, doesn't it?
It feels like it. It's burned many times in history, arguably. Civil wars, cultural revolutions. Today, the constant social media feuds, the inability to even talk across divides, it feels like the flames of Ragnarok licking at the foundations of civil connection.
So if the bridge is always vulnerable, always trembling, destined to burn but also to be rebuilt, what is the practical, maybe sacred labor of rebuilding it now? The sources seem clear, political deals alone won't cut it. What actions actually build this bridge?
The Bifrost starts to glow again, the sources suggest, when people stop shouting abstract, mechanized, golem-like ideologies at each other from opposite banks, and instead start sharing concrete human reality. The bridge isn't built from agreeing on abstract beliefs, because frankly, that feels impossible right now.
So what is it built from?
It's built through encounter, through shared action, through doing things together.
Okay, give us some tangible examples. What does that actually look like in our fractured world today?
It looks like maybe conservatives and progressives planting trees together, literally side by side, focusing on the shared ground beneath their feet, not their political manifestos.
Okay.
It looks like farmers, people deeply rooted in the red earth traditions, talking honestly with environmentalists who are reaching for the blue sky of global sustainability. Not debating policy points endlessly, but maybe discussing soil health, water quality, shared reality.
Finding common ground, literally.
Yes. Or veterans breaking bread with peace activists, not to score points, but to share stories of sacrifice, loss, hope, moving beyond the political labels to the human experience.
So the bridge isn't built from ideology.
No, we saw where that can lead with the golem. It's built from encounter, from disciplined listening, which is really hard, from genuine hospitality, and maybe most importantly, from shared labor towards a tangible common good, fixing something together, building something together.
The Norse lesson then is it's tough love, almost. It rejects that easy optimism about connection just happening.
Absolutely. Connection isn't some free gift that just appears when times are good. The Norse saw it as a discipline, a craft almost, a craft requiring empathy, perseverance, courage. It has to be renewed daily, weekly.
Even when it trembles, even when it feels like it's burning.
Especially then. You heroically persist. You keep building. You don't wait for the perfect political alignment or for the other side to see the light. You start building with the messy, imperfect human materials you have right now. The very difficulty, the peril of the crossing, is perhaps what makes the connection sacred. It's earned, not given.
Okay, this feels like it's bringing us towards the integration point. This is maybe the most challenging part, section 4. We've journeyed through the Greek struggle of order and chaos with Apollo and Dionysus. We faced the golem's warning about creation, consequence, and certainty. We've navigated the Norse tension between rootedness and transformation with the Bifrost. Across all three, a really clear pattern seems to emerge, doesn't it? The red flame and the blue tide, order and chaos, root and river. They aren't actually mortal enemies. They're more like cosmic siblings, both necessary for existence.
That's beautifully put. Cosmic siblings. Absolutely. Without the Apollonian flame, there's no warmth, no clarity, no enduring structure, no home. Without the Dionysian tide, there's no renewal, no growth, no life-giving change, no progress. They fundamentally require each other. Their tension isn't a mistake, it's generative.
And if we connect that back to the bigger picture, are you saying the political divide we see externally is somehow a projection?
It's a massive psychological projection. I believe the source material strongly suggests this. The outer divide reflects the inner divide that exists within every single one of us.
Inside each person. Explain that.
Well, think about it. Inside you, the listener, right now, there's probably that powerful desire for safety, for structure, for the familiar, for tradition. That's your inner Apollo. But there's also, likely, an equally compelling hunger for freedom, for novelty, for change, for breaking boundaries. Your inner Dionysus.
The tension between conscience, the clear law, and compassion. The urge to dissolve boundaries for empathy.
Exactly. That inner conflict is real. So, societal healing, the argument goes, can't just happen out there. It has to begin with integrating these energies internally. We have to become more comfortable holding both the Apollonian and the Dionysian, the red and the blue impulses, within our own souls, before we can realistically expect the wider world to achieve that kind of difficult balance. Heal the inner divide first.
And when cultures, or even smaller communities, manage to do this, when they successfully honor that sacred balance, that's when things really flourish, isn't it? Where tradition is allowed to evolve gracefully and where progress actually remembers and respects its roots.
Yes, and the research gives us some great, tangible, modern examples of where this balance is, at least sometimes, being honored.
Like what?
Well, think about some faith-based environmental movements. They often perfectly merge that Apollonian reverence for established creation, for stewardship, with a Dionysian impulse toward vital renewal, urgent care for the earth, adapting to new realities. That's tradition evolving, not just digging in its heels.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Or look at some parts of the local agriculture movement. Regenerative farming, for instance. It often explicitly merges ancestral wisdom, the knowledge rooted in the red earth, with modern science, sustainability practices, technology reaching for the blue sky, old and new working together.
And you mentioned artists and educators earlier.
Yes, they are often the ultimate synthesizers, aren't they? Good artists and educators don't try to eliminate conflict or tension. They find ways to translate it into dialogue, into story, into shared experience. They create a vessel, an Apollonian form, for Dionysian passion to be expressed and understood without becoming destructive chaos.
They hold the tension creatively.
They hold attention creatively, and these examples are living echoes of that balance the ancients seemed to understand intuitively. Remember, the Greeks taught us that the cosmos itself, the ordered world, was born from chaos, from the primal gap, the tension between opposites.
So conflict isn't the enemy of harmony?
Conflict is its raw material. If you try to eliminate the tension between opposites entirely, if you demand total uniformity or total victory for one side,
Yeah.
you actually eliminate the very possibility of creation, of growth, of dynamism. You get stagnation or death.
Okay, so the goal then for our fractured society,
Yeah.
it's not uniformity where everyone thinks the same thing, and it's definitely not victory where red crushes blue or blue washes away red.
The goal is something more like
A rhythm.
relationship. It's the sacred conscious dance between the flame and a tide.
Yeah.
Knowing that the dance itself requires both partners pushing and pulling, leading and following in a dynamic balance.
And the light we see across that rebuilt, trembling Bifrost bridge, it's not the single blinding glare of golem-like certainty, is it?
No, it's something richer. It's the many-colored glow of understanding, where the partial truth held by the other side is acknowledged, respected, maybe even incorporated, even if you don't adopt their entire worldview or methodology. You see the value in their piece of the puzzle.
We have to remember that core teaching then. Creation depends on tension held consciously. And truth. Truth is never the exclusive property of just one side.
Never.
So the real work of rebuilding the world, it starts, maybe counterintuitively, with the courage to see the divine necessity in the other, even the other whose political color feels like an attack. We have to stop seeing opposition purely as injury and start seeing it as necessary friction, necessary challenge.
Necessary friction for growth, perhaps. And, every great myth of division you mentioned, Osiris torn into pieces earlier, or think of Plato's androgyne, the two halves searching for each other, or even the temporary burning of the Bifrost. Every single one carries within it the powerful promise of eventual reunion.
What is scattered must be gathered.
What is scattered must be gathered. That inner division we feel, the outer division we see, it's the same archetypal tension. The same tension that drove Apollo and Dionysus to somehow share the sacred site of Delphi. No light without shadow, no creation without destruction, no progress without memory. The conflict itself is the process of becoming whole again, if we engage it correctly.
Which requires us then to embrace what you called the sacred art of paradox. To heal the body politic, we have to somehow honor the red's deep instinct for rootedness and the blue's vital call for renewal. We have to learn to hold, as the alchemists might say, fire and water in the same vessel without being destroyed.
That's the work. The modern Bifrost will always tremble. That's its nature, built of those unstable elements. But crossing it, maintaining it, that's the only path across the abyss of polarization.
So if we can learn, maybe drawing on these ancient maps, to view our modern divisions not as absolute, final, mortal battles, but as dialectical, as two interdependent energies that actually desperately need one another to remain healthy and whole.
If we can do that, the entire story of this era changes, doesn't it? The goal shifts. It's not about achieving zero tension, which is death. It's about achieving maximum creative tension.
Okay, let's leave our listeners with a final provocative thought to maybe carry forward from this deep dive. The storm of polarity we're living through. Maybe it's not just a sign of imminent collapse, maybe it's also a sign of an unfinished alchemy.
Ooh, I like that. Unfinished alchemy.
If we view our deep divisions not as absolute war between irreconcilable enemies, but as these dialectical energies, forces that need each other to react, to transform, to create something new, how does the story of us change?
Maybe integration, that middle path, the golden mean, the synthesis isn't just about weak compromise. Maybe it's actually transcendence, finding a higher perspective that honors both truths.
When the Apollonian fire and the Dionysian flood meet in conscious, disciplined balance, maybe we finally realize we were never truly just two colors at war. Maybe we were always one great spirit searching for wholeness. A spirit made perpetually capable of self-correction and even rebirth precisely because of its internal tensions.